Gui Guzi is an extremely mysterious figure from over 2,000 years ago, revered by later generations as the sage of strategy. He was highly skilled in psychology, strategy, and the art of horizontal and vertical debate. In modern terms, he was a psychologist, strategist, and negotiation expert. Even though more than 2,000 years have passed and times have changed, human nature remains the same. Therefore, the strategies Gui Guzi built upon understanding human psychology have not become outdated in today's society. So why do people say that Gui Guzi's art is essentially the art of reading people? He was most skilled at grasping the human heart. According to Gui Guzi, what is the core principle in communicating with others? And how can one capture the intentions and thoughts hidden within the other person? Grow Wise welcomes you, dear viewers. Each day, listening to one valuable book can help you live a more enlightened life and elevate your thinking to a higher level. Today, we continue decoding Gui Guzi, focusing on the second chapter, Fan Ying, which introduces the Fan Ying method. Fan Ying is essentially a method to grasp the thoughts and intentions of the other person during communication. It includes how to express yourself, when to speak, when to remain silent, how to debate, and how to enhance your expressive ability. As the saying goes, know the enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without defeat. Understanding the psychology, thoughts, and intentions of the other person is extremely important for success in communication. The principle of Fan Ying is that everything has two sides, yin and yang, which means there is always a reaction. Fan means to consider the issue from the opponent's perspective. Fu means, after standing in the opponent's position, to reflect back on your own actions. To understand the truth about the other person and formulate an appropriate strategy, one must repeatedly apply Fan and Fu to verify. This chapter discusses the Fan Ying method, which includes several techniques: fishing, analogy, listening and observing, and inferring the big from the small. First, the fishing technique. This involves concealing your true intentions. You say things that are suggestive or experimental to encourage the other person to reveal their true feelings. The bait is your own intention, but it must be hidden beneath words that are suggestive or stimulating to lure the other person into exposing themselves. Second, analogy and comparison. This uses symbolic language or historical stories to draw out the other person's true thoughts. When persuading someone, you must make them open up and lower their guard so you can gather truthful information from them. In ancient times, people placed great importance on reasoning through relatable and simple stories. The parables of Mencius, Zhuangzi, and Han Feizi are classic examples. Third, fan ting listening and observing from both sides. This means observing the other person while also examining yourself. The goal is to remain proactive in sending messages and observing the other person's reactions, then analyzing and understanding their true intentions. Fourth, Jian Wei Zhu Zhuanfering, the big from the small. This reasoning technique relies on accurate categorization. It requires determining whether the small detail you observe belongs to the same category as the matter you are trying to infer. If it does, the conclusion is inevitable. This method highly values historical experience, often comparing current realities with similar past events to derive appropriate responses. The Fan Ying method mentioned by Gui Guzi is essentially a treatise on how to gather intelligence from the other party. The strategists of the Warring States period, when operating on the international stage, first had to thoroughly understand the political, economic, military, diplomatic, cultural, geographical, and demographic conditions of the feudal states, as well as the wisdom and capabilities of kings and ministers. This information formed the foundation for persuasion and strategic planning. Of course, Gui Guzi's Fan Ying method is also highly useful in modern life. It is no exaggeration to say that anyone communicating with others can apply this method. If you can master the Fan Ying technique in life, whether in work or in dealing with people, you can handle all matters effectively and successfully. What exactly is the Fan Ying method? Gui Guzi wrote, "The great transformer of the world operates invisibly. According to Taoist thought, all things under heaven are born from the Tao. One who clearly understands the laws and transformations of all things is a great transformer, or what can be called a sage. The original form of the Tao is formless. As Lao Tzu said, all things in the world arise from being. Being arises from non-being. The sage deeply understands the transforming principles of all things under heaven, as if witnessing their birth and formation firsthand. Therefore, it is correct to say that the sage is born together with the formless. Formless means the sage is flexible and adaptive, not bound by fixed rules, and can solve problems without anyone noticing. So, how does the sage achieve such flexibility and adaptability? Gui Guzi believed that this agility is specifically demonstrated through the phrase, "Observe the past to understand the present. Examine others to understand yourself. Observe the opposite to understand the core. Examine the response to understand the cause." This means that when handling matters, the sage always considers both sides positive and negative with careful thought. They look to the past to understand the present, compare with others to understand themselves. The principles of movement and stillness, emptiness and fullness apply equally in past and present. One must clearly understand both the other party and oneself. This is the teaching of the sage, which no one should ignore. From a philosophical perspective, all things have two opposing sides. Therefore, we need to skillfully use the law of contradiction-opposition and unity to view problems. When you cannot see a problem clearly from one side, try changing your perspective and consider it from the other's point of view. Often, just changing your angle of view can bring clarity. Regarding how to use Fan Ying and related data, the core requirements can be summarized into 4 aspects. First, maintain stillness within movement. Gui Guzi said, "The speaker is in motion, the listener is still." When conversing or debating, listen to the other person's words and consider them carefully. If their words are unreasonable, counter them and investigate further. This way, you will see their true intentions. This shows that using stillness to control motion means, in conversation or debate, you should let the other person speak more while you speak less. Letting them talk is movement. Speaking little is stillness. Stillness does not mean complete silence, but rather speaking cautiously, only after careful thought. Many people, when conversing or debating, make the mistake of focusing only on expressing their own opinions, rushing to make the other person accept their viewpoint without giving them a chance to speak. They try to persuade through eloquence, but this is actually a rather foolish approach. A truly skilled communicator will find ways to make the other person talk more while they listen and silently analyze. When they detect gaps or contradictions in the other person's speech, they ask questions to probe further, gradually uncovering the other person's true intentions. This is what Gui Guzi calls Ren Ki Yan, Ting Ki Zilistan to their words and analyze their meaning. If you find contradictions or inconsistencies, ask counter-questions and keep probing. By continuing to ask questions, you will understand their real intentions. A skilled speaker does not always talk a lot. When they do speak, their words hit the key point, like striking a snake at its weak spot. This speaking skill using stillness to control motionless, similar to the debating method of the ancient Greek philosopher Socrates. He would often go out into the streets to talk with people, asking questions and letting others freely respond while he silently analyzed. When he detected contradictions, he would ask counter-questions, leading them to discover knowledge and truth. Second, skillfully use contrast. What is contrast? Gui Guzi said that speech with contrast involves comparison. Use contrast to observe matters. Contrast means using imagery to compare things, while comparison means using similar words to make analogies. When using contrast, you can naturally receive feedback from the other person and clearly understand their situation. Gui Guzi believed that using vivid language to describe things can touch the heart. For example, if we say someone has an ugly appearance, simply saying he is very ugly makes it hard for people to imagine how ugly he really is. But if we say he looks like Zhu Bajie, everyone immediately forms a clear mental image of his ugliness. This example shows that figurative language can recreate the image of a thing, easily triggering association and imagination, thus affecting human emotions. It is like fishing by teat can attract others, but whether you catch the fish depends on the quality of the bait. Similarly, whether you can attract others depends on the skill of the user. A clear example is from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. When Zhuge Liang first met Zhou Yu, he did not know whether Zhou Yu supported war or peace. To uncover Zhou Yu's true intentions, Zhuge Liang cleverly altered Cao Ji's poem Fu on the Peacock Terrace, changing it to I will capture the two Chaos in the southeast and bring them back to the Bronze Bird Terrace. The two Chaos were famous beauties of Jiangnanda. Chao was Sun Si's wife, and Xiao Qiao was Zhou Yu's wife. Upon hearing that Cao Chao was invading Dongwu to seize his wife, Zhou Yu became furious and immediately declared his determination to resist Cao Chao. In this example, Zhuge Liang skillfully used poetry to hide his true intent, causing Zhou Yu to unknowingly reveal his inner thoughts. In real life, such fishing techniques are very common. For example, a friend borrowed money from you but refuses to pay it back, and you feel awkward about bringing it up directly. You might skillfully say, "Hey buddy, do you know anyone looking to buy a used car? I'm thinking of selling mine because I'm a bit short on cash lately. Selling it would give me some funds to get by." This is a subtle reminder. If your friend isn't deliberately avoiding the debt, hearing this hint will likely prompt them to remember and repay you. Therefore, whether persuading others or in everyday communication, we must ensure our words are vivid. Only when language creates clear images can it attract others and allow for meaningful comparison. Comparison here means cross-referencing. In reality, the same event, when described by different people, will vary in wording and expression. By carefully comparing what they say, you will surely find inconsistencies. Comparison is an indirect communication skill to uncover the other person's true thoughts and intentions. This technique is not obvious, doesn't need to be overt, but can subtly make the other person reveal information. Gui Guzi calls this method luring people with a net. In real life, if we master this comparison method to probe the truth and thoughts of others, we will surely achieve what we desire. Third, skillfully use fan ting. What is fan ting? It means observing the opposite, thinking from the reverse position, and viewing the issue from a contrasting standpoint. In fact, this is critical thinking in logic. Gui Guzi said, "When words lack comparison, use criticism to test the other's reaction and respond according to your understanding. Observe their emotions, make a judgment, and continue observing from both sides." This describes the principle of using fan ting. If, after comparing the other person's words, you still don't get the desired result, you must change your approach. How? Use vivid language to influence the other person's thinking, thereby stimulating them to reveal the truth, and then control the situation to maintain the initiative. Gui Guzi believed that skillfully influencing the other person would provoke a reaction such as asking questions or challenging them. When the other person is stimulated by your words, they will certainly respond accordingly. This is like an interview between a journalist and a subject, with back-and-forth questions and answers. If the journalist knows how to skillfully use language to guide the other person, like using bait to lure a fish, and then silently analyzes and compares their statements, they will surely uncover the other person's true thoughts and intentions. Once you understand the other person's intentions and actions, you can determine appropriate countermeasures. Gui Guzi said, "One who knows how to listen and respond can become as unpredictable as a ghost or spirit, not only highly adaptive but also tightly controlling the rhythm of the conversation." This is like a skilled talk show host who can firmly control the pace of dialogue. The character Mu here means control, and Shen means thoroughness. Without tightly controlling the conversation's rhythm, you cannot obtain information from the other party, and without that information, you cannot formulate a thorough strategy. Gui Guzi said, "Change your method of comparison, and the other will surely respond." This is like saying, to hear sound, there must be a reaction. To reach high, start from low. To take, first give. The meaning is that we must continuously change our method of comparison, so the other person will gradually reveal their reactions. Listening here does not only mean hearing, but also implies guessing and analyzing. To skillfully change the method of comparison, Gui Guzi believed that if you want the other person to speak first, you must learn to stay silent. If you want them to confidently reveal themselves, you must be humble. If you want to gain something from them, you must first give a little information. Gui Guzi's teachings reflect the dialectical philosophy of Taoism, aligning with Lao Tzu's ideas in the Tao Te Ching: to weaken something, first strengthen it; to take something, first give. Fourth, know others, but first know yourself. Sun Tzu said, "Know yourself and know the enemy, and you will win 100 battles." This emphasizes the importance of understanding both yourself and the other. But between knowing yourself and knowing others, which should come first? Gui Guzi said, "To understand others, you must first understand yourself." This means that to understand another person, you must begin with understanding yourself. Only by understanding yourself can you truly understand others. Why must you understand yourself before understanding others? Because human nature is similar. Everyone has their own desires, not just ordinary people, but even sages are no exception. Gui Guzi said, "When you understand yourself, understanding others is like light revealing a shadow." Once the other person reveals themselves, you instantly recognize it, just as a shadow follows light. Once you clearly understand yourself and observe others' words, you will easily recognize what you need, like a magnet attracting metal, or a tongue detecting a bone in meat. The ancient Greek temple at Delphi bore the inscription, "Know thyself." Gui Guzi also emphasized the importance of self-understanding. He said, "If you do not first understand yourself, you cannot control others." Only by understanding yourself can you subtly control others without revealing your own weaknesses. This is the way to reach the highest level of understanding the other and capturing information. Thank you for watching today's content. This week's summary and interpretation of the book Gui Guzi ends here. If you have personal thoughts about Gui Guzi, please leave a comment and share. If you find this content valuable, don't forget to share it with your friends and loved ones. This is Grow Wise signing off. Until next time.